Before the city awakens, before Beijing hums with life, there is a stillness that lingers like breath between worlds. The mist rises low along the moat, curling around crimson walls that stretch endlessly into the haze. The air is cold, almost reverent, as though time itself pauses here, outside the towering gates of the Forbidden City. For 500 years, no ordinary soul was allowed to cross these thresholds. Now, in the pale light of morning, they stand open, yet they still seem to guard their secrets carefully. As you step forward, your footsteps echo softly against the ancient stones. The walls on either side glow faintly gold beneath the weak sun, their paint cracked but proud, like the skin of something ageless. Beyond the Meridian Gate lies a world once sealed from all eyes, a city within a city, a labyrinth of power, beauty, and silence. The emperors who ruled here called themselves sons of heaven, mediators between earth and the divine. Within these walls, they shaped destiny with whispers and shadows. The wind stirs faintly through the courtyard, carrying the scent of cedar and rain-soaked dust. Above, the rooftops shimmer with yellow tiles, the imperial color, symbol of heaven's blessing. Dragons coil along the eaves, frozen mid-flight, their ceramic scales glinting in the soft light. Even in stillness, the palace feels alive, as if the spirits of emperors and concubines, scholars and servants, still move quietly through the corridors. Every stone has witnessed what history forgot: the rise of dynasties, the fall of dreams, the unspoken intrigues that shaped a nation. Yet nothing speaks. The silence is deliberate, absolute. This was not a place for noise, but for control, for ceremony, for the delicate dance of power beneath a veil of serenity. You take another step, and the world beyond the gate seems to breathe, a sigh that carries centuries of hidden truth. Somewhere deep inside this vast enclosure, past the marble bridges and golden halls, lies the echo of a forgotten empire. Here in the heart of China, the past does not rest. It waits. Deep within the walls, beyond the echoing courtyards and painted gates, there once moved a presence few ever saw yet all obeyed: the emperor. To his subjects, he was not merely a man but the axis of the universe, the son of heaven, the living link between gods and mortals. No one dared to look upon him directly. Even his name was spoken in whispers. Within the Forbidden City, his footsteps were prophecy, his silence a decree. In the early morning, the halls glowed in red and gold, but the emperor's world remained dim, veiled behind silk screens and ritual. Servants moved like shadows, heads bowed, voices hushed. Every action, from the lighting of incense to the placement of a brush, followed rules written centuries before his birth. The emperor's days were carved in time, measured by ceremony rather than choice. To command everything was to belong to nothing. And yet his presence lingered everywhere, in the scent of sandalwood, the creak of ancient doors, the golden dragon embroidered upon his robes. He was both master and prisoner of this gilded labyrinth. In his silence, the city seemed to breathe with him, holding its secrets close, its power hidden behind the soft rustle of robes and the unending shadow of the throne. The Forbidden City was never built merely as a palace. It was a mirror of the cosmos. Every courtyard, every corridor, every gate followed an invisible order drawn from the heavens. To walk its central axis is to move through the geometry of creation itself. The emperor's throne stood precisely at the heart, symbolizing the pivot between earth and sky, where human will meet divine law. From above, the city unfolds like a mandala, symmetrical, deliberate, eternal. The northern walls face the pole star, the celestial anchor of the ancient sky. The southern gates open toward the realm of men. Between them lies a landscape of balance, palaces of yin and yang, halls of sun and shadow. Even the number of rooms, said to be 9,999, echoed heaven's perfection, one step short of divine totality. The architects believed that harmony was not decoration, it was truth. To live within order was to live within the mind of heaven. The Forbidden City was designed not for comfort but for alignment, its layout guiding thought, movement, and destiny. Every stairway rose in precise measure, every roofline curved to invite good fortune and ward off chaos. When sunlight strikes the glazed tiles, Gold ripples like liquid fire across the rooftops. The reflection dances along carved balustrades and marble bridges, creating patterns that seem almost alive. Water basins shimmer with clouds, turning courtyards into shifting skis. In every surface, the city gazes at itself, earth reflecting heaven, heaven reflecting earth. To walk these grounds is to wander through a living equation, a vision of balance perfected through faith and fear alike. The Forbidden City was not only China's heart of power, it was its soul made visible, a city of mirrors built to remind emperors that even they ruled only by the reflection of the divine. Beneath the golden silence of the Forbidden City, another world existed, one of whispers, footsteps, and unseen eyes. Thousands lived within these walls, yet most were never known by name. Eunuchs, servants, concubines, cooks, guards, scribes, all bound by duty, all swallowed by the palace's stillness. Their lives unfolded in shadows, their words confined to corridors that never echoed beyond the gates. Eunuchs served as the emperor's eyes and ears, their loyalty purchased through sacrifice. They wielded quiet power, passing messages, controlling access, shaping the flow of rumor and truth. A single word from them could seal a fate or erase it. Concubines drifted through painted halls like petals caught in an endless current, competing for a glance, a gesture, a moment that could lift them from obscurity to immortality or cast them into oblivion. The palace fed on ritual and secrecy. Behind its beauty lay a constant, invisible tension, the cost of serving perfection. Those who lived here learned to breathe without sound, to smile without meaning, to exist without trace. And yet, in the faint scent of perfume that lingers in the women's quarters, in the grooves worn into stone floors by quiet feet, their presence endures. The hidden city was not built by emperors alone. It was sustained by those who were never meant to be remembered. Deeper within the Forbidden City lies a maze of chambers, corridors that twist like thought itself, each turn marked by symbols only the initiated could read. Dragons guard doorways, phoenixes crown beams, and painted clouds drift across ceilings that seem to breathe with light. Yet beneath the beauty, there is a sense of confinement, a quiet geometry of control. The emperor may have ruled a vast empire, but within these walls, even he could lose his way. Every hall had meaning. The number of tiles on a roof, the pattern of a courtyard's stones, the distance between columns, all encoded lessons of order and restraint. Nothing here was spontaneous. The emperor's steps followed a choreography centuries old, written not by him, but by those who had built the palace to contain divinity itself. He lived at the center of a labyrinth designed to remind him that he was both god and prisoner. At night, the city fell silent, the vast courtyards empty under a wash of moonlight. The emperor would walk alone through the echoing halls, his reflection following him in the polished floors. Power, he might have realized then, was not freedom. It was a cage built from gold and reverence. Hidden behind lacquered doors and sealed chambers, the emperors of China kept what the world was never meant to see: scrolls of power, books of prophecy, and records that shaped empires. Deep within the Forbidden City, beneath the Hall of Supreme Harmony, lay the imperial archives, a labyrinth of bamboo shelves lined with silk-wrapped texts. Every decree, every dream, every secret that passed through the Dragon Throne was written and stored here. The archives were guarded not by soldiers, but by silence. Only trusted scholars and eunuchs could enter, their lives pledged to secrecy. It was said that among the endless scrolls were treatises on alchemy, celestial maps of the unseen stars, and ancient manuals of governance that blurred the line between philosophy and divinity. Some claimed the emperors studied formulas of immortality here. Others whispered of records from dynasties erased from history itself. When dynasties fell, the conquerors sought these writings first, not for wealth, but for wisdom. Yet many scrolls vanished, hidden or burned before they could be taken. Some believe fragments of them still lie buried beneath the palace floors, sealed within stone to wait for an age that can understand them again. The Forbidden City kept its greatest treasure not in gold or jade, but in knowledge too dangerous to forget and too sacred to reveal. In the Forbidden City, silence was not safety, it was surveillance. Every whisper carried weight, every glance could be reported. Beneath the calm symmetry of the courtyards lay a network of eyes and ears, loyal not to justice, but to power. Spies moved unseen among servants and officials, listening to the tremor in a voice, the hesitation in a greeting, the sigh behind a closed door. The emperor trusted no one completely, for to rule was to fear betrayal. Eunuchs became the secret architects of control, their loyalties bought and tested daily. They watched the courtiers, the concubines, even one another. Every rumor, every letter, every breath of dissent made its way to the throne. A wrong word could end a life. A forgotten bow could erase a family name. The walls themselves seemed alive with memory. Voices traveled through hidden vents, footsteps echoed down polished corridors, and behind painted screens, shadows flickered, proof that nothing within these walls ever truly belonged to privacy. Even laughter sounded rehearsed, as though joy, too, required permission. The Forbidden City was built to protect the emperor, but it also imprisoned him in endless vigilance. In a world where the walls could hear, truth had no sound, only the careful rhythm of survival. Power in the Forbidden City was never just political, it was mystical. To rule China was to balance heaven and earth, to hold harmony itself in one's grasp. The emperors believed that strength could not last without spiritual endurance, and so they turned inward, to the hidden art of alchemy, the promise of immortality, the illusion that the divine spark could be captured in a cup of liquid gold. Within the deepest chambers, far from the noise of the outer courts, Taoist masters and imperial physicians gathered in secret. They whispered of mercury and jade, of elixirs that could extend life or end it in an instant. In ornate furnaces, they mixed powders of cinnabar and pearl, dragon's bone and dew gathered at dawn, each ingredient a prayer to defy decay. Some emperors drank cautiously, others obsessively, each believing that within these shimmering potions lay the secret to eternal rule. But alchemy in the palace was more than a search for physical immortality. It was a mirror of power itself. To master the elements to command transformation was to imitate creation. The emperor's laboratories became metaphors for empire. Fire and metal, order and chaos, all merging in pursuit of something perfect, unbreakable, divine. Outside those hidden rooms, rituals echoed this same desire for permanence. In the Temple of Heaven, the emperor stood alone beneath the sky, offering silk and incense to the unseen. His voice rose through the cold air, calling for balance between heaven and man. The court watched from a distance, heads bowed, believing that his communion with the cosmos would keep the realm whole. Yet the same power that sought immortality also sowed fragility. The elixirs poisoned more than one emperor, the endless rituals drained generations of meaning. Even as the dynasty thrived in splendor, the pursuit of eternal life became its slow undoing, a reminder that perfection, whether of rule or of body, can never be sustained. The yellow tiles of the Forbidden City still gleam with the glow of those ambitions. They catch the sun like molten gold, reflecting the same light the emperors once chased within their crucibles. But no elixir ever conquered time. The emperors are gone, their palaces now museums of silence. Only the formulas remain, written in delicate ink, half mystical, half scientific, a record of humanity's oldest desire, to be remembered forever. And perhaps in that way the alchemists succeeded. The Forbidden City still stands, its heart unbroken, its walls radiant in the light of centuries. What they could not achieve in flesh, they achieved in stone, an immortality built not through mercury or magic, but through memory, still burning quietly beneath the sky of a city once forbidden, now eternal. For nearly 5 centuries, the Forbidden City stood as the beating heart of an empire. From its golden throne, emperors ruled a nation that believed itself eternal. But even stone can crack, and even dynasties carved in heaven's name must one day bow to time. The Qing dynasty, the last to rule within these walls, saw the slow unraveling of a world that had forgotten how to change. By the late 19th century, the empire was weary. Beyond the red walls, foreign powers carved their influence into the land, demanding ports, trade, and submission. Inside, corruption crept through the ranks of eunuchs and ministers, while the people starved under the weight of a crumbling system. Yet still, the Forbidden City clung to ritual, performing ceremonies, as if the empire's heartbeat could be restored through the rhythm of tradition. When the final emperor, a child named Puyi, ascended the throne, the world had already moved beyond him. He ruled in name only, his power little more than ceremony and silk. Outside the gates, revolution stirred. In 1911, the dragon throne fell, and with it, the divine order that had once bound heaven to earth. The Forbidden City, once closed to all, became a prison for its last ruler. Puyi wandered its silent courtyards, a child surrounded by ghosts of authority. The same walls that had protected emperors for centuries now confined the last one, trapping him in the shell of an empire that no longer existed. When the gates finally opened to the public, the world entered in awe and grief. The city that had once shaped the destiny of millions now stood as a monument to impermanence. Yet in its silence, there is dignity still. The fall of the dragon throne did not end its story, it merely transformed it. The Forbidden City no longer ruled the world, but it continued to watch over it, a reminder that even the mightiest empires must one day learn to surrender to the passage of time. The Forbidden City sleeps now beneath the same sky it once ruled. Its gates stand open, but the air inside still carries the weight of centuries. The tourists who walk its courtyards do so softly, as though afraid to disturb the stillness, the faint pulse that lingers in the stone. The golden roofs gleam in the sunlight, and the shadows of dragons curl across red walls that have witnessed the rise and fall of emperors, of dynasties, of dreams. Yet the silence endures, unbroken, patient, eternal. At dawn, the first light slides over the yellow tiles, illuminating the Hall of Supreme Harmony, where rulers once received heaven's mandate. The courtyards, once filled with music and ritual, now echo only with the whisper of wind. But if you stand quietly, you can almost hear them. The rustle of silk, the clink of jade pendants, the faint murmur of court officials rehearsing words that could alter the fate of millions. Time has moved on, yet its ghost remains, layered in the air like incense. In this stillness lies the truth of the Forbidden City's endurance. Power fades, glory crumbles, but meaning persists. The emperors sought immortality in elixirs and edicts. What they found instead was remembrance. Every stone, every carving, every dragon's eye gazing down from a beam carries their story forward, not as dominance but as memory. The city has become its own emperor, ruling not through fear but through silence. At night, the mist gathers again along the moat, turning the palace into a reflection of itself. The towers shimmer faintly, doubled in water and sky, as if the past and present have finally found their balance. The stars above seem to align with the lantern lights below, and for a breath, you understand what the architects once knew. Harmony is not built, it is remembered. The Forbidden City no longer commands armies or decrees. It commands wonder. It stands as China's eternal dream, proof that beauty, even born from control, can transcend its purpose. Here, the divine and the human, the powerful and the forgotten, the past and the present all coexist within the same breath. As you walk toward the gate of divine might, the wind moves through the pines, carrying a sound almost like a sigh. Perhaps it is the city itself, exhaling after 500 years of holding its secrets. The silence is no longer heavy, it is holy. And in that silence, the Forbidden City finally reveals its truth, that all power ends, but the story, the spirit, remains. Beyond the vast courtyards of the Forbidden City, past the marble bridges and vermilion halls of state, lies a gate that once divided two worlds, the gate of heavenly purity. To step through it was to cross from the realm of politics into the realm of secrets. Few ever passed beneath its golden roof. Beyond it lay the inner court, the emperor's private world, where only his household, his wives, his concubines, his servants, and his eunuchs were permitted to walk. The air there was different, hushed and perfumed with sandalwood and jasmine. The sound of the outer world, the drumbeats, the ministers' voices, the thunder of imperial processions faded into nothing. What remained was softness, the rustle of silk, the faint ringing of hair ornaments, the measured steps of a servant on polished stone. The courtyards gleamed with ponds and pavilions, their reflections rippling like dreams. It was a paradise built for perfection, yet every surface gleamed with restraint. Beauty here was never free. It was controlled, precise, and purposeful. In this hidden realm, the emperor was both omnipresent and unseen. His shadow touched every wall, though he might appear only once in many days. The women of the inner court lived within that shadow, their fates bound to his will. To be chosen by him was to rise beyond imagination. To be forgotten was to vanish within a maze of splendor. Behind every painted screen, the air shimmered with unspoken hopes and fears, like incense smoke curling toward an invisible ceiling. The eunuchs moved silently through it all, the guardians of this fragile world. They held the keys, carried the messages, and kept the silence that protected the emperor's domain. Theirs was a power no one acknowledged aloud, a power born from knowing everything and revealing nothing. Standing before the gate of heavenly purity, one feels the shift, the sense that time itself slows as you cross its threshold. The world beyond it is golden, beautiful, and still, yet beneath its calm surface runs a current of longing. Inside these walls, love could crown a queen or summon a ghost. The inner court was more than a palace. It was a cage lined with silk, glittering under the weight of eternity. At the heart of the inner court sat the empress, the mother of the nation, heaven's chosen companion to the Son of Heaven himself. To the world beyond the crimson walls, she was the embodiment of virtue and order, the axis around which harmony revolved. Every subject bowed to her name, every woman in the empire was measured against her grace. Yet within the forbidden city, her crown was made of silence. Her days unfolded according to a calendar older than memory. At dawn, attendants helped her dress in layers of embroidered silk, each thread a symbol of rank and restraint. She performed rituals for prosperity, bowed to the ancestors, and presided over the selection of concubines who might one day bear the emperor's children. Her smile was not her own. It belonged to the dynasty. Her every gesture, her words, even the tilt of her head carried meaning, for through her, the empire judged the stability of heaven and earth. But behind the brocade and ceremony was a woman who seldom walked beyond her own halls. The empress was honored, yet watched, powerful, yet confined. Her world was a golden stillness, where affection was rare and isolation constant. She ruled over hundreds, yet could not rule herself. Beneath the endless rituals and the painted dragons of her chambers, she existed between two eternities, worshipped as divine, but remembered as a prisoner of perfection. They were called the flowers of the inner court, hundreds of women chosen from every corner of the empire for their beauty, grace, or the favor of noble families. To enter the forbidden city as a concubine was to step into a dream woven from silk and fear. They arrived young, faces painted with hope, their hearts trembling as they passed beneath the towering gates. Beyond them awaited a life of luxury beyond imagination and captivity without escape. Each concubine was assigned a rank, a title, and a set of gilded chambers whose splendor reflected her position in the emperor's heart. Yet the true currency of the inner court was not gold or jade, it was attention. A single night in the emperor's company could raise a woman to power, her family elevated, her name whispered with envy. But indifference was a slow death. Those who fell from favor vanished into quiet rooms where laughter no longer echoed, their beauty fading as swiftly as forgotten dreams. The palace was a garden where affection bloomed and withered with the turning of seasons. Rivalries were veiled in courtesy, daggers hidden beneath smiles. A glance, a rumor, a misplaced gift could determine a woman's destiny. Alliances formed in whispers, betrayals were carried out in silence. Yet for all its cruelty, the court held moments of haunting grace. The concubines studied poetry, played music that drifted through moonlit courtyards, and offered prayers to the stars for remembrance. At night, their lanterns flickered like trapped fireflies behind carved screens, each flame a life waiting to be noticed. To the outside world, they were ornaments of the emperor's glory. Inside, they were survivors, navigating a web of beauty and danger spun so finely that love and fear became one. Beneath the fragrance of lotus and sandalwood, the forbidden city pulsed with the quiet sorrow of women who had everything, except freedom. They were the quiet pulse of the forbidden city, the eunuchs, servants made powerful by their proximity to the throne. Neither fully trusted nor truly free, they existed in the gray space between obedience and control. Their voices were soft, their movements careful, their presence constant. To most, they were invisible, to those in power, indispensable. Each eunuch had been reshaped by sacrifice, their bodies altered so they could serve without temptation. Yet in losing what made them men, many gained what others could not: access. They carried the emperor's orders, managed the empress's correspondence, controlled the supply of food, gifts, and information. In a world where every word mattered, they became the keepers of the unsaid. Over time, their influence grew. Some wielded more power than ministers outside the walls, their whispers steering policies and fates alike. To offend a eunuch was to risk disappearance. To befriend one was to invite salvation or ruin. They knew who entered the emperor's chambers, which concubines were favored, which officials plotted. They saw everything and said nothing. But knowledge is a dangerous gift. Many who rose high fell harder, consumed by the very intrigues they helped weave. Their loyalty was often questioned, their motives doubted. Still, in the endless theater of the Forbidden City, the eunuchs were the unseen directors, watching, recording, and ensuring that every secret stayed where it belonged. Behind the veil of silence, within the inner court, nothing was simple, not affection, not loyalty, not truth. Every smile concealed a calculation, every word weighed like gold dust. The palace was a world of unending ceremony on the surface and invisible warfare beneath. A nod at breakfast could mean alliance. A glance at tea could foretell betrayal. Concubines formed fragile friendships, bound by necessity, shattered by envy. Eunuchs aligned themselves with those rising in favor, then quietly abandoned them when fortune shifted. Servants traded rumors like currency, carrying whispers through the corridors until they reached the right or wrong ears. The emperor's favor, unpredictable as the seasons, dictated the rhythm of ambition. In a single night, a girl could ascend to power or vanish without trace. Poison was not always in the cup, it was in the words. A single suggestion, planted gently, could erase a rival more completely than any dagger. The art of survival lay not in strength, but in stillness, in mastering the delicate language of silence. At dusk, the courtyards glowed with lanterns, and the air seemed to hum with unspoken schemes. From behind screens and carved doors, the empire's fate turned on gestures so subtle they could be mistaken for grace. The Forbidden City was a paradise of order and a web spun of fear. The Forbidden City glimmered with elegance, but beneath its gold leaf and incense, danger breathed softly. Power here did not always fall with a sword. It dissolved in a cup, hidden behind a smile. In the women's quarters, laughter drifted through the corridors like perfume, delicate and deceptive. Every banquet, every gift, every shared drink carried risk. Trust was as fleeting as fragrance. A favored concubine might wake one morning to find her attendants dismissed, her meals replaced, her doors sealed from the outside. Illness would be whispered, grief would follow. Yet no one spoke the word poison. The palace kept its secrets well. Physicians, scribes, and eunuchs all knew their roles in silence. The body would be removed before dawn, her name struck from records as though she had never existed. Those who watched learned quickly. A raised eyebrow could mean accusation. A missing servant could mark a fall. Even the empress herself was not untouchable. Her enemies might gift her a delicacy laced with ambition. Survival depended on vigilance, on reading intent hidden behind painted fans and ceremonial bows. The inner court's beauty was its camouflage. Behind its serene order lay an invisible battlefield where death arrived without sound, and loyalty ended in a single sip. The forbidden city glowed with harmony by day, but at night, under the lantern's flicker, its perfection tasted faintly of fear. In the long shadow of the throne, one woman learned to rule without ever sitting upon it. She began as a concubine, chosen for her poise and quiet intelligence, another flower in the emperor's garden. But when her son became heir, her power began to bloom in silence. She was no longer merely a companion, she was the mother of the empire. Her name would one day echo through the marble halls as Empress Dowager Cixi, the woman who turned whispers into commands and confinement into sovereignty. She studied the rhythms of court life, the pauses between words, the hesitations in council, and she filled those spaces with influence. Ministers who dismissed her discovered their careers unraveling overnight. Eunuchs, once masters of secrets, became her loyal instruments. Through patience, charm, and calculation, she learned to move the empire as delicately as one might play a stringed instrument. Behind the silk screens, she listened while others spoke. Behind the throne, she ruled while others bowed. Her power was not declared. It was felt, woven into every decision, every decree issued in her son's name. Yet even her reign carried its solitude. The forbidden city granted her authority but denied her peace. Still, within those walls of gold and shadow, she proved that silence could command nations, and that a woman's hand, unseen but unyielding, could shape the destiny of an empire. In a world where words could kill, the women of the Forbidden City learned to speak without speaking. Their messages moved not through paper or ink but through silk and gesture. A thread of blue woven into a sleeve could mean alliance. A misplaced hairpin might signal warning. In the courtyards, fans fluttered with coded meaning, opened once for greeting, twice for farewell, 3 times for danger. Letters, when they existed, were hidden in embroidery. A blossom stitched with 7 petals could conceal a name. The curve of a vine could trace a secret path through the palace. Servants carried these small tapestries between quarters under the guise of gifts, never knowing, or pretending not to know, what truth they carried. Even conversation followed its own rhythm. Compliments masked caution, laughter softened refusal. The concubines mastered a diplomacy of silence, weaving survival into beauty itself. To live in the inner court was to move through a tapestry of symbols. Each glance, each fold of silk, each quiet pause in a song became a language of endurance. The palace shimmered with secrets unspoken, its air heavy with meanings too dangerous to be heard aloud. When night fell over the forbidden city, its golden roofs dimmed to black glass, reflecting only the pale light of the moon. The courtyards emptied, the music ceased, and silence reclaimed its dominion. In the women's quarters, the lanterns burned low, their glow flickering against painted walls. Outside, the world beyond the crimson gates felt impossibly far away. The concubines lay awake beneath embroidered covers, listening to the wind move through the cypress trees. It whispered like a voice they could not quite remember, one that spoke of mountains, rivers, and the open sky. Some pressed their palms against the cold stone pillars, feeling the earth's quiet pulse beneath them. Others gazed through lattice windows, tracing the same moon that shone over the villages they had left behind. No laughter rose, no footsteps echoed, only the rustle of silk, the sigh of longing. Even the stars seemed to fade behind the haze of incense smoke. In that endless stillness, dreams became rebellion. Freedom lived only in memory, carried softly between breaths. The palace, magnificent by day, became a vast cage by night. Its beauty so perfect it could almost hide the loneliness that glimmered beneath it like tears. History remembers emperors by their decrees and warriors by their victories. But the true heartbeat of the Forbidden City often came from those whose names were never written. Behind the red walls and golden gates, power was not always loud. It was whispered, carried by women and eunuchs who moved unseen through corridors of silk and shadow. Their influence flowed like water, quiet yet unstoppable. The empress guided the tone of the realm through her restraint. The concubines shaped politics through affection and survival. The eunuchs controlled the very breath of communication. Together, they formed an invisible empire within the empire, a government of emotion, intellect, and instinct that kept the palace alive long after the throne grew weary. The emperor ruled by divine right, but it was the hidden court that governed the pulse of daily life. A single glance from a favored concubine could sway a decision in council. A word from a eunuch could elevate a family or destroy it. The Empress Dowager could reshape policy with a letter written in her son's hand. The empire's fate often turned not in the hall of supreme harmony, but in the quiet of the inner chambers, where politics wore the disguise of intimacy. And yet their power came with a cost. These were lives lived in confinement, their triumphs celebrated only in secrecy. Few monuments honor them, few scrolls bear their stories. But the walls remember. The same stones that absorbed their laughter, their grief, and their courage still stand, holding the echo of those unseen rulers. The hidden court teaches that power need not roar to endure. Influence can move in silence, bending the course of history with the softest of touches. The eunuchs who guarded secrets ensured continuity where chaos might have taken hold. The women who navigated love and fear with grace preserved the dynasty's dignity even as the world beyond its walls shifted. Their resilience was the empire's quiet miracle. Today, the Forbidden City stands empty of emperors, yet their ghosts remain, not as specters of fear but as reminders of endurance. In the rustle of silk in the museum halls and the faint scent of incense still clinging to the air, one can feel their presence. The hidden court is gone, but its spirit lives on. In every untold story, every quiet act of defiance, every trace of humanity that refused to be erased. They were never meant to be remembered, and yet they are. Not by name, but by legacy. The invisible hands that held an empire together, the silent architects of destiny. Beneath the stillness of the Forbidden City, their whispers continue to weave through time, reminding us that history's truest power often belongs to those who speak the least.